Hello, everyone. Before we get started with episode 48 of FECast, all about the Eternal Celebration, I have a few thank yous and plugs to make. First of all, if you're not already a part of the Friends of Eternal Discord, it's the best place on the web to get better at Eternal. Link is in the description. We have players of all levels of experience and levels of success helping each other out. Second, a huge shout out to our patrons at patreon.com. Huge shout out to Cotillion, Alcide Bava, Work Done Sun, Chamomile, Chrissier, D-Dub, and Yeast Out for keeping us afloat and letting us pay our editor and basically making FECast possible. Finally, a huge shout out to SRFS, our editor who puts in a ton of work on FECast every week, getting it out to you. So, without further ado, let's get started with FECast episode 48. Stormblessed is on hiatus this week, but I have two very special guests that I hope you will enjoy. Here we go. Hello, everyone, and welcome to FECast, the official podcast of Friends of Eternal. This week, we're talking all about the Eternal Celebration, and we have a couple of special guests who are going to weigh in on some of their favorite moments of Eternal's history and what direction Eternal should take going forward. I am your host, Sunyveil, and today I am joined by the first player to qualify for Worlds 2020 after qualifying for Worlds 2019. That isn't the champion, Collector. Welcome back to the show. Good to have you.
Thanks for having me.
And the person who put up perhaps the most obscene 2020 competitive season, defeating me many times along the way. Welcome back, TheBoxer. It's good to have you back on the show as well.
Glad to be here.
All right, like I mentioned, we're going to be talking about the Eternal Celebration, but first, let's get you caught up on all of the news updates that we have. So after last week's show, we got the official announcement for the Eternal Celebration. It's going to be going on from October 23rd to November 1st, and everyone should have a fully stocked account for this time period. Everyone will have access to every card. So if you have friends that are on the fence about trying Eternal, or maybe didn't want to get started because they didn't have the cards, this is the best chance to get them into the game and show them what a great game we have. So I'm definitely going to be trying to convince people to play Eternal, and I sure hope that you do also.
There are even extra recruiter friend bonuses for this period, so.
Do we know what those are?
I want to say they said an exclusive avatar, but I can't, among some other things, but I can't quite remember for sure.
Okay, I only briefly skimmed over that part because I assumed that I wasn't actually going to succeed in referring anyone, as I don't think I ever have. So refer a friend bonuses during this time are sweetened a little, but we also have a few other events that are going on. By the time this recording goes out, we'll probably be done with the Brewers Ball, which happened in this week, ending on the 23rd. And it's a bunch of brewing challenges that is being run through Reddit, where players can submit their novel deck ideas, and I think the devs are going to try to play these decks on stream next week. So the submission period is all but over at this point, but next week, stay tuned to the Direwolf Digital stream for the devs playing the coolest decks that people could come up with. Should be a lot of fun. Another thing going on during this Eternal Celebration is we have Set 1 Draft. I don't know if this is an opinion held by everyone, but a lot of people I know loved Set 1 Draft. I personally think it's one of the great draft formats of Eternal. It's not my absolute favorite, but it's definitely up there, and I really enjoyed drafting Set 1. I did it an absolute ton. What do you guys think about Set 1 Draft?
I never actually drafted too much during set 1. I didn't have the gold for it, trying to build up my collection, but from the few times I did, I enjoyed it.
So I started playing during set 2, and I never did set 1 draft except for, I think there was 1 week where they had it a flashback at some point. But I watched on Twitch, like I think LSV, and then that was back when they had Kibler doing Eternal stream. So I watched set 1 draft a lot, and it looked cool, and I'm excited to get to play it.
Yeah, I even have an emote on my Twitch stream based on set 1 draft, Xenon Guardian, that, my favorite thing to do was just click on Xenon Guardian. It's the 3/3 for 4, has endurance, and has ultimate pay 8 to give it +5/+5. That was my favorite strategy in set 1. We'll see if it holds up. The other thing that we have going on this week is the Tricky Treats Heroic event. This is the heroic format where you pick a hero that's basically a unit that has a comma in its name, and you build a deck around it that is only the hero's factions, and basically you get to call your hero and put it into your hand every game for the low cost of 2. Your deck has to be a singleton. It's very similar to the commander format if you're familiar with that in MTG, and it's a lot of fun. I've definitely had a lot of fun playing this in the past. There's a bit of a twist where you get Pale Riders on turn 7 and 13, I believe. But hey, I am an absolutely huge advocate for more heroic format in Eternal. I think it's just a great thing for the game, and it's a great way to play some of the cards that you don't see as often because you are playing a singleton format. Last but not least, there are 4 qualification for worlds up for grabs. And well, I mean, if you have friends that play other card games competitively, this coupled with the fully stocked accounts will hopefully grab their attention. So the way this is going to work is that during the week there are going to be events that you can enter into where you play up until you get 7 wins or 3 losses, and I believe there are some amount of prizes. But the big prize, if you go 7 wins in one of these events, you get to qualify for basically an ECQ that just has this extra level of qualification. But it's free to enter once you've qualified through these events, and each run will cost 4,000. So you could basically enter in an ECQ for only 4,000 gold if you manage to convert 7 wins on your first one. Um, and you'll get a chance to do this as many times as you want, I believe. So even if you don't make it the first time, you'll get another shot. And so anyone that wants to qualify for the basically day 1 of the ECQ, the special last chance ECQ, will should be able to do so. But this is no ordinary ECQ because the top 4 players are going to be qualified for Worlds. I guess it's not technically called an ECQ, but it's a similar format. The format's going to be Throne with the balance patch that we had last week. I think Throne's in a pretty good place, or at least, well, I know there are some differing opinions here actually, now that I think about it, but I've been enjoying Throne a lot, and it should be a great tournament. So tell your friends that they can qualify. Best of luck to everyone out there who's shooting for one of those last 4 slots. The last big announcement that we have, and this probably has to do this probably more impacts the members of this podcast more than the average listener, but we will have a new mini set released on November 4th. That's a Wednesday, the day after Election Day, and it is called Bastion Rising. It comprises of 23 cards that you can only get in this mini set. I forget the names of the ones that we already had, but we've had a couple of these before Argent Depth's release. There is a pre-order bundle for, I believe, 45 American dollars, and you will get access to 4 cards early. I believe that these cards are going to exist for the last chance qualifier, but having looked over them, I would be surprised if any of them played a big role in any of this. Like, you could see maybe one of the cards doing something over the course of the entire tournament, but I don't think we're in the dangerous pay to win territory here.
I believe they're all going to be unlocked as part of the celebration, so
Yeah, there's speculation on that. It's not entirely clear. It doesn't make a whole ton of sense to have this pre-order bundle starting. I believe the pre-order bundle starts October 26th. Like, it doesn't make a ton of sense to have the pre-order available and then the cards are already unlocked and then you lose them for a few days unless you pay it. Because you'd only be missing out on like 3 days. But we'll see. We'll see. In any case, I don't think there's too much to be worried here. There's nothing utterly game breaking, at least as far as what I see from these cards. We're going to gloss over these cards. We'll be reviewing them next week. I want to get into more Eternal Celebration stuff this week as we celebrate Well, I was about to say our favorite games. I don't know that Eternal is necessarily my favorite game, but I've certainly spent a heck of a lot of time and energy on it, and I'm not disappointed that I've done so. I'm happy to have spent that much time and energy on it, because I do really like Eternal and the community and the role it's played in my life. So let's talk about that for a bit. I asked both of the guests today to come up with some Eternal memories they would like to share from Eternal past. So, Collector, do you want to start us off? What are some great memories you've had related to Eternal?
I mean, like just after closed beta coming out, just like having a new card game to play. I'd had a couple of my real life friends playing it at the time, so we'd spend a bunch of time talking about that in person. It's just like it was a new card game to play that wasn't Magic, and it was a lot of fun in that regard. Like, it was built for online, and you could tell it was, and like it was doing cool things, like Warcry, like modifying cards inside of your deck still, which I hadn't really gotten to do things like that in my card games before. So things like that were always really fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I think Eternal's always keeping it fresh, right? Like that's one of the big draws to it is that it's not Magic. like, well, I take it you've played Magic for a very long time, also, Collector, right?
Since like 7th edition, yeah.
Oh my goodness, same exact. I remember getting the 7th edition starter deck, so
Foilthorn Elemental still got it.
yeah, and I mean, they just do such a great job of making formats new. Like, sure, sometimes the format is a bit of a train wreck. We've had a few of those, but with all the updates they have and the set releases and the bounce patches, I feel like there's always something. There's always unexplored space in Eternal for one of the two main formats, and that's something that's really great. The Boxer, what is a memory or some memories you'd really like to share about Eternal?
So, yeah, one memory I have of Eternal, actually, probably my earliest, was uh, I had noticed that, like, I had seen that LSV was streaming this different game, and back then I was a big Magic player, and it was the day of the section swim meet in high school. I think I was a junior in high school, so they had like given us an hour to go home and get ready before the meet, and my getting ready was watching the video of LSV play this new game. Ever since I saw it, I was like, okay, I need to get into this game at some point. It was just coolest card game I'd seen at that point.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. I mean, it's hard to think of a time before Eternal for me, but sure enough, that existed. And again, a lot of frustration from Wizards of the Coast for me. And just getting to play something where I had a lot of faith in the devs was really cool.
Yeah. Another great memory for you was like last year. Um, that ECQ that I'd won back in March was my first ECQ ever, actually. I'd always been hesitant to enter them because I assumed the competition would be extremely stiff, like Magic GPs were. Where, like, even if you're like one of the best players in the room, you might still lose out just because you got bad matchups, which obviously can still happen. But I wanted to bring a Shimmer Pack deck, and I watched Yoda play a similar deck on stream and put Ava in it. I was like, hey, that's a great idea. I'll do that. And I did that. Ava was great all weekend. Managed to actually win, beat Noverb in the finals. That was kind of insane to me, especially because this was my first tournament. So
I had no idea that was your first tournament. That was that wasn't like one of the very first ECQs, right? It was like number
I think
3
it
or
was
4,
the
right?
third or fourth.
Yeah, but boy, that's an incredible story. I didn't realize that was your first ECQ. So if anyone out there is on the edge about maybe I should compete and maybe I shouldn't, you could pull a Collector and win your first ECQ and then go on to have probably one of the most successful Eternal careers of anyone out there. So why not why not me, I guess is the saying, right? Well, apply that to everyone out there listening.
How about you, Sonny?
Yeah, I have so many just like jubilant memories of Eternal. Getting to hang out with Grimfan and Gibbon last year, and we did something like this. I don't know if you saw the video, but I filmed a short video that I put on Reddit of just like, what is something great about Eternal that you're excited for in the next year. getting to do the Bay Area meetup with the folks from the Misplay and Allevi and Rexulus and Shy City Shogun. That was also really, really, really cool. And then of course, like winning the Throne Championship after winning what I consider to be 3 basically unwinnable matchups. Although I shouldn't say unwinnable. I do like I say there's a lot of hyperbole in Eternal, and I shouldn't perpetuate that. But three very difficult matchups on route to winning that was pretty incredible. And then a few as a spectator, like watching Man and Mouse utterly crush everyone in the first draft tournament. I know I bring that up a lot, but that was a lot of fun to watch. I miss Man and Mouse being a part of the community. And another one is watching Grimfan win the ETS Weekly that he won. I don't know if it was just one that he won, but I just remember he was playing some sort of like crazy safe return deck, and he was just on so much fire, making great plays and just outplaying his opponent during that finals. I just remember really enjoying that. That was about a year ago. I'm sure there are many, many more. I mean, like Friends of Eternal is obviously something I'm incredibly proud of, and there are a lot of great Friends of Eternal related memories watching people get better through the Discord and the community, and 47 other episodes of FECast. So it's a lot. Eternal's been a really big part of my life, and I don't regret it. I don't regret spending that much time playing this game because I've really loved it, and it's led to a lot of really positive memories for me.
Oh yeah, well, we all have a lot of hours, I assume, in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, just looking right now, I have 4,065. I mostly play in client, but I definitely play a fair amount on mobile also, like not a negligible amount. I wouldn't be surprised if I had over 100 hours on mobile, but that's not factored into the Steam counting, and that's already over
Yeah, I got like
4,000.
3,100 there. I do leave the client open a lot, but I've also played on mobile a lot, so maybe it averages out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have, I think, 4,017, which is just a ridiculous amount of time. It's a hard number to like get an intuition for just how much time that is.
And I feel weak now.
So if you didn't sleep,
Like 160 days, roughly.
Yeah, I was about to say 4,800 would be 200 days in a row playing this game. So, yep, we're addicts.
At least for me, this is over 4 years, right? Open beta was 2016.
Yeah, well, they're celebrating their fourth anniversary,
Right.
so that makes sense. That would be about 4 years. And one other thing to celebrate is that we're all qualified for Worlds. I mean, we've been on podcasts together almost a year ago at this point. I don't know the exact dates, but um, Collector, you qualified for Worlds 2019, but the Boxer and I didn't have a qualification, and we've all qualified for Worlds again. And I think that's super duper cool. And well, I'm happy for you too, and proud of Friends of Eternal and FECast and everything. And Stormblessed would make one more person if he was here.
Yep.
There was a joke for a while that it would always be the person who beat me was invited on alongside whenever I was a guest. I think we had.
Yeah, that's right.
We had Chamomile. We had Collector. That there was actually a funny story for that one. Collector beat me. I think you probably remember this too. You were on Reanimator. I was on Carver, and I had a gavel in my market, and you were on what was called Warrior Reanimator, which was just.
Yep.
I'm not gonna play any burglarize or anything. I'm just gonna hope to dodge the hate, and you didn't. You like ran into me, one of the few people playing a gavel in the tournament.
I think the only person in the top 64.
Yeah, and then that game just went a really weird way. Like I think the game 3.
I wish I had recorded.
I mulled to 6. I played my merchant and gavel on 4, and then you strung together a combination of Black Sky Harbingers and just hardcast Varas as a 6/6 deadly for 8, and pulled off a victory.
I also like traded merchants with like 2 of your press gangs and dodged those like 2 turns just long enough to be able to waylay them out of your deck so you couldn't get them back.
Yeah, that was an awesome game.
Yeah, boy, this all sounds way better since we're all qualified. Because you beat me in that tournament, the boxer, and it was like pretty ridiculous. I don't know if it's unreasonable because like I'm sure you had plenty of outs, and being as versed with the 5 faction even Vox Kilo deck, you were aware of all of them. But from my side of the board, it was like, boy, I've totally got this game. All I need to do is dodge Snow Crushed Animist, and then I get hit by Snow Crushed Animist. And then the next game, boy, I've totally got this game. All I need to do is dodge a Snow Crushed Animist. And sure enough, there was a second Snow Crushed Animist. So yeah, I invited people that beat you until no one beat you, and I was forced to invite you, despite you having beat me. So I guess they're like I passed the curse on to myself or whatever.
Yeah, that deck, I going into the tournament, you might look at that and say, oh, he must have been really confident, knew this was the deck for the format. And after the tournament, I was able to look back and say, okay, a lot of these things were right. But going in, like the day of, I think it was like Saturday morning when I was deciding, okay, what deck do I play? I wasn't sold on the deck yet, and I was just like, okay, I'm gonna try this. It'll at least be fun. And I told Murder of Crows, like, whatever happens, this will be a really cool ECQ because we got this 5-color deck at least kind of functioning.
Yeah, and then you crushed everyone with it. That's the funny thing about pet decks is sometimes it works out that way. For Mono Fire, for me, I there's like a screenshot of me messaging Camomilk, and I guess it was just open in the Discord, but Camomilk was the person that I was talking to. I was like, yeah, maybe I'll just play this Mono Fire deck. I haven't really tested it that much. Like I played 5 ladder games with it. It felt pretty good. This is the one time that I haven't prepared a ton for an ECQ. That means I'm probably going to win, right? And sure enough, that's what happened.
Yeah, joking about winning proves to be a pretty good strategy for ECQs. I think I tweeted before the 5-faction one a screenshot of the deck in action and said, the goal is a mirror between Murder and I in the finals.
I think part of that is that the less expectations and pressure you have on yourself, the easier it is to play well because you're not stressing out about how you're actually doing. And I've definitely found that like in Magic events and Eternal events, like the less I care about how I actually place, the better I do.
That's so weird, and that doesn't make any sense to me. Do you think you play better in those events? Like, do you think your play is actually like tighter and more aware in those events if you have less pressure?
I think I'm more likely to like not get locked into certain patterns of thinking under when I have less pressure on myself. Because like sometimes I find myself like going, okay, I'm gonna do this, and then I'm gonna do this, and then like something changes, and I don't bother to take that into account, or I say I'm gonna do this, and then I proceed not to do that, even though I should have done it, just because I forgot that I said I was going to do that until after I did the other thing. If that made sense. I don't know. That's just me, though.
Yeah, I agree. It's easy to get into kind of an not autopilot, but when you're trying to focus too much, sometimes you prevent yourself from just thinking naturally and like going with how the game goes and adapting to it. I don't know. I definitely feel like I do better when I just wake up and, oh, okay, I'm going to play some Eternal today, rather than times where I get really stressed and I'm right before the top 64. I'm just thinking, okay, I have to play really well now. And in those, there's been a couple ECQs where I've just lost to some stupid mistake in like the top 64 or top 32 where I'm like, I should have known better than that. And it was because I was so stressed and trying to play my absolute best that I stopped myself from actually thinking.
That doesn't bode well for me. I took the week before Worlds off, so I'm planning on playing like 10 hours a day or whatever leading up to Worlds. So
I don't think that's bad for like. I think preparation is good, but I think the morning of you can't wake up tense, and you need to try and relax right before the tournament and not. I'm planning on preparing a ton for Worlds.
I mean, I plan on preparing, but I'll probably make a last minute deck change that's completely untested and run with it. Like, Sunny can attest that last year before Worlds, I was the only person on the team on Stone Scar. As like the day of this mission being due, I was like, hey, you guys know what? Groundbreaker seems like it'd be great in this deck. All right, 4 of it submitting.
Well, I mean, for that tournament, I think that I know Rakano ended up winning, but I still don't think that Rakano was the deck to play for that tournament. It was just like so ridiculously heavily represented. But
I mean,
that's another story.
I think Trumpets would have taken the whole thing down if he got anyone but Popatito.
Was Trumpets on?
Diogo combo.
Oh, I see. And Popatito was probably on some sort of like 3-faction mid range.
Was on Genève with like 4 displays and like a counterspell in the market.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about Eternal as it is today. It's changed quite a bit in the years that we've had. We've had a few adjustments. I think generally speaking the player base is smaller. Some people have stuck around the entire time or for a very long time, and on the other hand we have a bunch of new faces. So what is your take on the current state of Eternal, including everything like metagame and player base and Twitch and whatever else you want to include as far as the state of Eternal is?
Boxer, you want to go first on this one?
Yeah, I don't know. I think despite the player base being down a bit, it's in a good place. We've had a couple formats over the last year that I wasn't that big of a fan of, but right now, whether it be Throne or Expedition, I'm just enjoying playing Eternal right now and enjoying preparing for tournaments. I haven't been that in the loop for Twitch stuff, so I can't say that much how I think it is to be streaming. From what I can tell though, there are a lot of people who enjoy streaming Eternal, and yeah, I guess I don't know numbers of people streaming, but we have a lot of really dedicated streamers that I can tell.
Yeah, so for me, Eternal's in a little bit of a weird place right now. Like, I like, how the game is playing out right now, like the actual draft games, the expedition games. I've never been just the biggest fan of Throne just because the card pool is so large. I'm not generally a fan of that necessarily, but yeah, I like how it plays. It's just that like you said, the numbers of active players seems to be going down a bit. Like draft queues, I'll sometimes reach 2 or 3 minutes, on average these days before I get a match, which before was never like more than 30 seconds.
Oh, well, I've definitely had times where like that was the norm where I'd be waiting 2+ or 3+ minutes for a draft game.
Yeah, but
So
that was at like 4 a.m.
what? No, not for me. It would be like in the middle of the day.
Sure.
This was back in like Defiance when I drafted the most.
All right. But like also like the same type of things happening in constructed. It'll take a couple of minutes to get queues when sometimes. Generally they fired off pretty fast in the past. Twitch viewership, I think we're averaging around like 200 before, where I want to say even like 6 months ago it was like double that. Someone could check my numbers, but it's just what it feels like. Direwolf definitely needs to try to get new people in here, and hopefully this Eternal Celebration will help. Just because, the longer queue times get, the more people get annoyed with having to wait, which means they'll play less, which, is just a negative feedback loop for queue times, and that's just never good for a game.
Yeah, I definitely agree with regard to queue times. Well, I think that they're taking all the right steps with Eternal Celebration. Like basically everything they're doing during this event seems fantastic. I love it.
Yeah, I
If we
definitely think it's a good start.
Yeah. And the other thing is like we had our first big draft tournament. I think that's awesome. There were a lot of hiccups along the way, but hopefully those are sorted out. And if we could have more of those, that's really cool. I'm not too worried about where Eternal is right now. Like, yeah, the overall numbers are lower than they used to be, but there's a lot of people that are super passionate about Eternal, and that does a lot. Like we have some of the coolest tools that you'll find in any card games with Eternal Warcry and like Yeti Spy. I think those are great tools. The Twitch extension Waystone is fantastic. The tournament series this year I think went really well. I really enjoyed playing competitively, and that's
Yep,
that's a huge plus. Like that's something that you could just have year after year. And
100%.
the set releases have been sped up a little, and we've always been able to have really fresh formats. So I really like a lot of the things that Eternal is doing. And I'm optimistic that we'll be able to, well, at least for the very immediate future, we'll still have this great game to play.
Yeah, they're definitely doing a lot of that stuff right. Like their Waystone extension is probably the best card game extension I've seen on Twitch. It works well. You don't have to download a third party app to get it running. It's very good.
So with this tournament coming up, this was going to work out perfectly because there are four slots for Worlds, and if Stormblast was here, we'd have four people that we could choose to. If they could win, we'd be really happy. So who would your pick for winning this last chance qualifier be? And it doesn't have to be someone that is likely to win, just someone who you would really love to see in Worlds. Collector?
You're gonna make me choose between my teammates?
Yes.
Well, I'm gonna go with Gallop probably. Um, M Gallop, for those of you who don't know him. Between him and ISO, they work on a lot of decks, and a lot of those decks they do go to the Barbarian camp, but they also go to a few other teams. I forgot what the teams are offhand, but they help our decks a lot. Gallup's a great player. He's the one who got me to play Warrior Reanimator for that one ECQ. I'd like to see him there with us.
What about you, the boxer? I think I can guess who this is.
This would have been harder a bit ago, but one of my teammates that I would have been saying Murder of Crows is on a little bit of a hiatus, so I'm going to say Notorious GHP. I've seen him put so much work into preparing for these tournaments. I'm working with him every time because I'm on a team with him, but yeah, he puts in endless hours. He's probably the person I've played the most direct challenge games against. Yeah, just tons of work, and I hope he finally makes it this one last chance.
I see we're all giving a heavy dose of tribalism here because I'm going to go with Camomilk, who I don't think people realize this, but he's been with Friends of Eternal since the very beginning, and he's been helping out people all the time. I know that, like, you guys come in and give excellent advice, like to high level advice, basically. Like, this is really good advice. It's going to help the people who are good get better. Camomilk kind of is really generous with helping out people who are, trying to take their first few steps, and that's something that I've noticed. And I'd love to see him uh, qualify for Worlds. He got within one match of winning. I forget who beat him, but that was the even-handed Golem deck, and he also has helped fund my streaming efforts and FECast for a long time. So definitely rooting for Camomilk.
Camomilk lost to Mule in the Winter Championship.
Uh-huh.
Mule 29.
That even Elysian, that was just straight up breaking the format. Like you can't really say that often, but that was just breaking the format.
Yeah, I mean, even decks were not popular up until that point, right? And then all of a sudden, since then, we've had just a continuous barrage of even decks enthroned, just like various different types of it. And I think Camomilk had a lot to do with it. Now, of course, picking just one person is really tough, right? I mean, there are so many people that have been around in the community for so long and have been putting a lot of work in that we'd be really happy to see do well in these tournaments. I mean, I don't know about you, but like every top 16 or whatever, I'm rooting for, half of the field or something like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, best of luck to everyone in the last chance qualifier. Our episode next week will try to help you prepare for it. We'll be talking a bit more about a throne metagame breakdown and what we think is going to be good, etc. Yeah, it's I'm already looking forward to it. All right. What direction should Eternal take in the future? Let's talk about the future of Eternal. How do we think it's going to go? And what do you think is going to happen? Let's start with the 2021 season. Do we think we're getting another season of competitive play? Because I definitely think it's happening, but I know that's a point of contention among some people.
Yeah, from some, quote, sly comments from Scarlatch on Discord, it seems like a 2021 season is going to happen. Whether or not it'll maintain the 50k prize pool or not, that's up for debate. I'm kind of the mind that if they don't have it, then the game is not going to be around for much longer. Like, to be honest, I know a lot of people who stick around just because of the competitive tournaments. So
Yeah, I'm gonna have to second that about the. I worry for the future of the game if there wasn't another season. Another thing I have as evidence that there will be another one is they seem to be improving things as time goes on. There's been a few, little problems with some of the tournaments. They tried their hardest, but they couldn't stop a rank from qualifying. But like, I think it's on the up and up. I think they're figuring this out and getting it to work better. They made a lot of changes from last season to this season, and I think they're having the tough discussions about what's working, what's not. They seem to be in the mindset of experimentation to make the future better, not just, oh, we didn't like last time. I guess we should try it differently this time because it's the last time we're doing this.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing with card games because I think they take a while to pick up steam. You see a lot of card games generating long-term players. It's not like something like StarCraft, for example. And I just saw that StarCraft 2 is basically going into maintenance mode. They're not coming out with new content for the game. But I mean, the majority of the game is released, when the game is released. When Eternal's released, we only had one set. We had not quite 1/9 of the number of cards because the set 0 and 1 were the biggest, but like, maybe a fifth of the cards that we have now. A fifth of the game was released 4 years ago. And because it just keeps on getting bigger, like, I think that goes a long way into keeping people's interest and really making long-term players out of people. So I think that, like, yeah, we've had some people leave because they're not excited anymore, but I don't think that's going to stop there from being a good competitive scene. And I don't know the numbers, but I imagine that they, like, financially the competitive scene is pretty good for them. Like, it gets people to buy cards from set releases, and people pay the entry fee. So I'm pretty optimistic about the competitive scene. If there is no more competitive scene, that's a pretty bad sign for the game. But I don't think we're at that point yet. And hopefully, the Eternal Celebration will help start a really strong trend upward. What do we think in terms of the influence store and Twitch drops and all that? Because I think the influence store is one of the coolest things, and I don't know why. Like, all of the Steam seemed to go out of the stales when they stopped doing drop campaigns, because I thought that was a great time of Eternal, and I know people are probably tired of hearing me saying that, but uh, I just think that so many people were excited about Eternal with the influence store. And you see, like, whenever a streamer or even a viewer has enough influence to design a card, it really brings the community together. A lot of people like to give input and work on the card together to make something that'll be a part of the game. What do you think the direction of the influence store is going to be moving forward?
Well, I think the influence store, as it is kind of a wasted opportunity. Most of the things in there were put there when the store first launched. And aside from, I think, the community emotes, which came at some later point, but at this point, it was probably even a year ago at least now, as well as I think they added the draft tickets within the past year. But they never really add things to it. They never do anything special with it that, incentivizes people to actually watch. Like, yeah, I could get 5,000 influence for a pack, like, big deal. Like, um, most people, like, the 1.75 million to actually design a card is so far away from them that it's not even in their view. So, like, putting things in there like alternate art torch, or some other things, or like rotating old the card backs through the thing, like, if you start playing this year, you're never going to get that card back from June 2019 unless they do something like put it in the community store. They should do things like that to get people actually, excited for things that might go in it and watching on Twitch to get that influence.
I don't know. I Ever since they like took some of the stuff out of it, and haven't been adding anything more. I haven't been paying as much attention. I don't know. I don't watch a ton of Eternal streams. That's not because of like the streamers. It's more just there's only so much time in the day. I generally have a bit of trouble sitting still sometimes. I with one monitor, it's hard to keep it on in the background. But the influence store is the thing where, oh, I need shift stone. I guess how much do I have of influence from the last ECQ broadcast? Oh, do I have enough to get a pack to get me a little more shift stone? It's like not this exciting thing, but I think if you added really unique stuff like collector set, or even I don't know about the drop campaigns, some stuff it doesn't even need to be that low cost per influence, but something in the middle that lets it feel bigger than just an in-game reward, or maybe that's the wrong phrasing. I think maybe even like, oh, you can vote on what fun format. If people contribute enough influence, you get Scion Draft for a week, or if people contribute enough influence, you get a hero event. Something that people could work together on and like get this unlock a fun casual format like that.
Yeah, I definitely agree that of the things that are frustrating to me in Eternal, the influence store has got to be up there because it's one of those things about Eternal where the infrastructure is there and it's so good and there's so much potential. It's just like they haven't put things in the store for people to want to buy, and that would go such a long way for it. Geez, I feel like at this point it's just not really happening because, like, I don't know, I feel like if it was going to happen, it would have happened a while ago
Yeah, I mean,
for the influence store because it seems so easy to implement and you don't need to like plan special dates and make sure that you have commentators or whatever, or like a world's circuit.
they've had what 2 or 3 years to put more things in there, and they've put in like one community emote pack.
Yeah, and the emotes are so cool. Like that was an absolute like that's the exact thing that the community store should be there for.
Yeah, like that was great because we actually got to submit quotes as a community and get those into the game, like Kamados, yeah, and math is for blockers and things like that. I mean, that's the only thing they've done with it.
Yeah. So I express frustration. Are there other things about Eternal that we're frustrated about? I know a lot of people are frustrated about the lack of advertising, but honestly, I don't have that much of a problem with it because advertising is just like a black hole where money goes to die. And
Yeah,
not being Blizzard, not being Hasbro, they can't just spend who knows how much money on advertising. And I feel like especially with how they're promoting the Eternal Celebration, they're doing a good job of working with the resources they have. But boy, I like the thing that I would want are just like regular ECQ style tournaments. I don't know what the overhead for that is, but if we just had a bracket play out every Sunday or something, maybe not every Sunday because it would take, it's a really big commitment per week, but like every other Sunday or twice a month or something like that. If we just had one, and even if there are like no prizes other than fame and glory, I think that would be a great thing to have for the game because as it stands now, of course, something we've complained about a lot is that, we don't know when the next tournament is.
I mean, I have a long list of things that I think that Direwolf could do. Some fairly easily, some maybe not so easily. Like people have been asking literally for years, just global auto mute feature. Some people just get really tilted by emotes. Like I know I've seen one or two streamers just immediately the game starts, they go mute the opponent. Like let me make that a setting in the thing so that I can not have to do that every single time I play somebody. Like that gets really old really fast. This is more of like an issue for streamers, larger friend lists. That's probably trivial to implement, and people need it. Deleting multiple decks at once, like we can still only delete one at a time, and like it's you out of the delete options. You can't even go click delete, click delete, click delete. You got to click the extra button to go back into delete. Give me an open all packs button, like
Oh yeah, that one.
or like open all Twitch drops at once. Like if I'm watching Twitch for like 2 days or whatever, and just didn't get a chance to open the client, I don't want to have to like click through like 8 different treasure chests to actually start playing.
All right. So these seem like quality of life changes that would involve a fair amount of programming and infrastructure that we don't already have, which I assume is what is like the expensive stuff for them to implement.
Those were actually probably some of the easier things.
Okay.
Like longer friends list is probably just literally change a number somewhere in the code.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, things that are harder to implement, give people the ability to challenge friends with a 45 card deck. Like, I know Jedi likes doing his cube drafts, and I imagine other people would too, but they have to pad them up to 75 cards because you can't challenge with less. I mean, there are other things too, but I'm just getting kind of preachy about things people have already talked about a lot. But like other things that I think they really need to do, I know you mentioned earlier keeping releasing new sets is something that helps maintain players, and I totally agree with that. But then the flip side of that is that I have had some friends who like take a look at it and go, there's 4 years of stuff I don't have. There's like now 9 sets and a bunch of campaigns. Like I don't have the money or time to get all that. I'm just not even going to start. Um, like they could start like some of the older campaigns where 0 to maybe 1 of the cards actually see play. Start bundling them together. So like instead of having to spend 75,000 gold for Jack's Bounty and 2 other useless campaigns, like let me get all 3 of those.
Yeah, I think that's something that we really need if we want to, keep people that are trying out the game.
And I really think that should happen like during the celebration event and continue past that, because this is their prime time to try to get new people into the game and keep them in the game, because they're going to go from having a full collection to nothing.
Yeah.
So having a way to just get more would be good. Also, you can't acquire draft packs anyway. Like you can't go to the store and buy them. For people who want to play Expedition, that's kind of annoying.
Yeah, you have to draft, and I guess you could just like resign drafts, but that's so inefficient gold wise.
Anyway, that's enough rant for me.
Yeah. So the campaign thing, I was planning on mentioning if you didn't. I have at least one friend who recently told me, "Oh, I've stopped playing Magic. I'm moving over to Eternal," and then he had asked me about building, certain deck for like maybe a week or two, and then I stopped seeing him online in the client, and he must have just like given up because of how daunting getting a collection was. I don't know. It's not hard to be free to play if you are good for the like past campaigns and stuff. I think it would grow the game a lot if that got fixed. One other thing that I think could be changed, I don't know where to strike a balance with this, though, is I think balance patches, it's good that we have them more often than they used to be, but I think they can be too frequent at this point. Sometimes, actually most times, the format for one ECQ is going to be drastically different than the one for the next one, and sometimes there's just no other way about it than to nerf stuff, because some cards are clearly oppressive, but we've seen formats adapt after a tournament, and I would have been interested in where they had gone if there wasn't intervention, kind of not letting stuff get stale, but I think it doesn't always need a balance patch after every ECQ. It's gotten a little monotonous at this point. The 2 days after the ECQ, you're thinking, oh, I can't even really be preparing for the next tournament yet because there's going to be a balance patch. Not that it's been announced, but you just know there will be.
Yeah. So using the invisible hand of the free market metagame in order to solve the problems, right? I do think that Kira needed a touch up after the last one. And I think that like the changes to Stone Scar are pretty minor. So I think we are going to see some of that. But you're definitely right. Like, especially in Throne, there's a lot of room to auto adjust. And I feel like that's more so than Expedition with its limited card pools. Cards are standing out by a wider margin.
Yep. Something I am hopeful, though, for the future of Eternal is that recently Scarlash has said they've been working on the ability to host in-client community-run tournaments for a long time now, and they're just trying to get over like the final technical hurdles. So once that is actually implemented and available to us, I see that could go like a long way towards reviving something like the ETS, because you don't have to spend all the time trying to make brackets and do pairings. And,
yeah.
A lot of the running the tournament goes away, and then it just becomes about casting it. It could really help the community scene a lot once that happens.
Yeah, and in so many ways, right? Observer mode too, if that's ever a thing that can happen.
I mean, even if it's not just friending people in the tournament and watching them through that way, it's close enough.
Yeah, running tournaments takes a ton of energy. I know a lot of people have asked about why a tournament scene doesn't develop from the community, and the reason why is because it's a lot of work for not a whole lot of gain for the people running it. Okay, so you mentioned players playing Magic. Well, let's move on to our questions that we had for the mailbag episode that we didn't get to last week. So our first one is from Ilya, who asked the same question that he always does. Well, okay, my big question is, what can Direwolf do to rake in all those disgruntled Magic players? If you're not familiar, Magic players are very unhappy right now, competitive Magic players especially, with the state of the game, and I think they have a lot of reason to be without going too much into it. As Chapin responded recently on Twitter, the frustration has gone to the point that people no longer even have the energy to meme on WotC's bad design choices, WotC bans left and right, and at the same time, those people aren't coming here. What exactly is Eternal supposed to do to get a larger community? Well, I think one thing that would go a long way is draft tournaments, because right now, Magic does not have draft tournaments. I think that would get a fair amount of people and a fair amount of attention in the game. That's not something that very many games have now. Granted, draft is just like not as big as constructed is in any game, but I think it would be, a unique selling point of the game. And it's something that a lot of people that play Eternal a lot have said that, yeah, I loved the draft tournament. It was fantastic. I hope we have more of those. But as far as other ways of getting players, do you have any ideas for Ilya's question?
I mean, we've kind of like mentioned them before, like, as Eternal Celebration's a good way to start, letting them have a full taste of the game before, needing to commit to it. Uh, and then trying to implement some ways to keep them around post, like by bundling campaigns or other type of things. But I think people who should really be targeting right now for MTG players or Hex players, because Hex is going away at the end of the year. So all those players, they're like a lot of Magic players were paper only or primarily paper, and they don't necessarily want to play a digital game. But Hex has always been digital. It'll be a good switch over to try to get them here. How they do that need a better marketer than me. But
I also think that like a regular tournament system would be very good in that. Just like have the tournament dates. That's what I want. I just want to
Yeah.
know what the tournament dates are so people can plan about them.
Let me know sooner than the week before.
Yes.
Yeah, I think the group of players that they need to be targeting is you shouldn't be aiming for the extremely casual crowd. I don't think Eternal's going to be able to like cut into Hearthstone or Runeterra that much. I don't know a better way to put it than it being MTG like, but the combat system, the power cards, similar to land card. There's a certain amount of variance that comes from not getting resources at the beginning of every turn. There's a certain narrow category of players you need to target, and it's people who are semi-competitive at games like Magic. I think Eternal metagames can be pretty deep, and you see some casual people at some points be turned off by decks like FJS, which I think a lot of more competitive players like. I think you shouldn't be casting too wide of a net because there's a lot of people who might try the game and realize it's not for them.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good point. I mean, all of us are like the semi-competitive Magic players. At least we were when we started playing Eternal, right? And that seems like a very good description of a lot of the Eternal players that I know, for when they got into the game. I think that people are going to complain about card games no matter what. Like,
Oh, for
if
sure.
it's not resource system, it's a certain card or like some other aspect of RNG that needs to be in the game in order to make it fun and exciting. So maybe the whole land or power system rubs some people the wrong way, but like on the other hand, there are tons of people from Magic that are used to that thing and don't have too much of a problem with it. And plus, Eternal does a great job of mitigating it. I mean, like
Oh yeah,
Eternal just does so many things really, really, really well. It's just a matter of like appealing to the the right type of person, getting their attention to stick. I think that tournament dates, like having regular tournaments, would go a really long way for that, because like if you're trying to get someone into Eternal now, you'd be like, oh yeah, we have a great tournament series, and if they're like, okay, when's the next tournament, you're like, I wish I knew.
Maybe there will be another one, because after Worlds, we're not even sure.
So let's go on to the next question. Rodcop asks, how can the community rebuild the player base? Twitch viewerships, Twitch streamer numbers. Came back to Eternal after Haunted Highway nerfs, and it seems the numbers are down. Yeah, I think we've talked about player attraction and retention and bundling campaigns. I think those are all things about this. So I think we'll skip that one if it's okay, Rodcop. So let's go into our next question, which is pretty similar. From serpentwind, Do you all think that Eternal has the potential to be a major player in the CCG space, or is it possibly not meant to be that? I feel Eternal has always been a very solid game, but Direwolf takes a very hands-off approach to marketing the game. Was there a point where Eternal could have broken through to be a major player? And I mentioned a bit about this in the last cast. I think it could have, but I think that window has passed. I think that Eternal was probably from the beginning just meant to be a niche game, and that's definitely, where we are now and where we're headed, I think. I think that before MTGA really took off, there was a space for it because it was Hearthstone or MTGO, and neither of those, in my opinion, were very appealing at all. And here's Eternal, this like shiny card game that runs really smoothly and where you get to play on your opponent's turn, I guess. But now with MTGA having tournaments and Legends of Runeterra just being a fantastic free to play game, I don't think it has the potential to take off and be absolutely huge. Like it's not going to take the world by storm the same way that Among Us has or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, card games have a very limited reach to them just by their very nature, and if it wanted to get out of the gate, it had to do so quickly. Like, when MTGA, like you said, didn't exist, Hearthstone was like the main digital card game at the time that was palatable from a UI perspective. Eternal didn't have a major IP backing it, so there's not even an interest when people are like, "Oh, I like this franchise. What is this?" They could have branded themselves as some, I don't even know what franchise they would have tried to get, but it's too late to try to do any of that at this point.
Yeah, and it kind of sucks, but I think they did take the right approach with not trying to make it the next huge card game. It just seems like they would have so much to compete with Magic and Legends of Runeterra, aside from just being better than them with regards to like branding and whatnot, having a recognizable brand. But that being said, like I think that like there is space for it to be a very good niche game because well the developers are fantastic. They put out a really polished product. If they continue to support ongoing things like a tournament scene and set development, then yeah, I think Eternal could definitely just continue to be a niche thing, and maybe in 5 years or whatever, it will grow up to be a big thing. I don't think that's like impossible. Although I think it's just going to maintain its niche status.
Yeah,
I think it could be a lot bigger than it is now. I don't think it'll ever could have gotten to the point where it's necessarily, listed as one of the, big games in, I guess I don't know what category. I don't know if MTG is even listed in one of the big games in esports. I don't think, but like,
They
I,
try.
you know,
They try.
I don't think Eternal could ever, get to that kind of level, but I think it can be a lot bigger than it is now.
I agree with that. Unfortunately, I think the best way for Eternal to rapidly grow is for Magic to implode, which it kind of seems like it's on that path right now, but, people are so invested in Magic, I don't see it happening anytime soon.
They're so on that path. Oh my goodness. Maybe we need to have a spin-off podcast with what's going on in Magic because we allude to it a lot and it's not good. Okay. Next question is from Chris A, longtime patron of the show. My question is pretty game design focused. How do you think, as players, we should judge the health of the game right now versus the future direction? Is it okay to have cards that are too powerful for now in order to make a better game in the future? I tend to be a long view type of person and don't mind much if something is a bit too powerful now for the better of the future, but I think I might be in the minority here. Definitely things are getting more difficult. Cards that were nerfed because they were oppressed are being unnerfed. Like, I'm not alarmed. I don't know. Like, Argent Depths definitely felt like a really, really powerful set. But I'm certainly not in any zone where I'm feeling alarmed by what's going on. And I don't feel like there's like very little counterplay to most things, aside from when they released Jack ahead of the next expansion. And then we got the expansion. It's like, wow, a lot of these cards are just very good. Um, I'm not concerned about like long-term health of the game with cards that they're releasing. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm not really either, and that's the beauty of being a completely digital format, is that, if something is too strong, they can nerf it in an instant, and then once the appropriate cards are out to counter it, they can unnerf them if necessary. Like, for those of you who were playing way back in set 1 and set 2 and set 3, like, there was endless whining about Sandstorm Titan and about trying to nerf it. And part of the reason was because there just wasn't removal that could really hit it aside from like what Annihilate. I think
Yeah,
that was about it.
Annihilate Vanquish.
Yeah, Vanquish too. Like you had those two spells, so up to 8 copies in an exactly Argenport deck, and that was it. And like as the game's gone on, better units have been printed, better spells have been printed, and Sandstorm Titan's kind of fallen to the wayside. And I can't even remember the last time I heard someone asking that card to be nerfed. So like, yeah, I mean, I think cards can afford to be powerful, especially if future cards are coming to make them reasonable. Sometimes it might be worth, nerfing them slightly until those cards come along, but for the most part, I think they're fine.
There's always going to be some cards that are more powerful than others. I don't think you'd even want a format where everything's supposedly the same strength and, literally anything is viable, the 80 boxes or whatever some people like to call it. But, like, I think a while ago, we did see some really oppressive cards, like Palace and Siditi were some of them. Like, I'm not that worried about power creep. I think things are fine now, and if they realize stuff is going in the wrong direction, they can quickly correct course. Because of their ability to do nerfs, it's rare for new cards to be released and old ones still to be that big of a problem. I think they're pretty good at looking at long-term stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I have so much faith in our devs compared to like the people that make Magic. Sorry to like beat a dead horse, but it's just so true. And another thing is that, as it turns out, it's possible to have formats that comprise of cards from a long period of time with a lot of different design philosophies in them. Like you look at Magic's Modern, which was the most popular format, and 10 years into the format with 10 years worth of cards, it was the most popular format. And I don't know the actual age of it. Mirrodin came out in what, 2003 or 2004?
Somewhere between 2002 and 3, yeah, I think.
So that's 18 years ago. I don't know that it's still in a great spot now, but if the devs designing Magic were doing a better job, I think it certainly could be still everyone's favorite beloved format. So power creep is a thing, and they're always going to need to push the envelope in some direction a little. But I don't think it's like too daunting of a task to make sure that the game always feels like some of the old cards are still relevant. Like if they push the envelope too much across the course of an entire set, yeah, but like there would be red flags all over the place for that. And I just don't think that that's going to happen. Like we're playing a game today where people are still playing Seats, they're still playing Annihilates, they're still playing Initiate of the Sands. Like these are set one cards that have been with the game the entire time, and they're still seeing a lot of play. So yeah, I'm just not worried. All right. Last question we're going to tackle on today's podcast from Mevers. What do you think the next season of Competitive Eternal should look like? I think that this season worked pretty well. I would love to see consistency rewarded. People who finish in the top 4 3 times shouldn't miss on Worlds, I think. Like, assuming there's just 1 or 2 people that have been able to accomplish that feat, I think that should be rewarded.
At the very least, I think there should be a tournament rewarded, for those who have been consistent, to give them one last shot. Like, small tournament, just those people. Because they did that the first year, right? And, like, that tournament was, like, no offense to anyone else who was in Worlds, but I felt like that invite tournament was more stacked than Worlds was.
Yeah, and it was also an absolute showcase of what Competitive Eternal has to offer, because everyone, or maybe not everyone, but like so many of the players of the tournament were so great. Yeah, I'm pretty sad we're not getting that this year. That would be a lot of fun to watch. I personally would rather have just like an invite given if you reach a certain threshold, or like, not, I guess you're not reaching a threshold, but like to the top whatever performers based on some point system. I personally would just like to see them be invited as opposed to a last chance tournament, but there's definitely an argument to be made for that as well.
Yeah, I mean, just the straight invite to like the highest performers is just a tough thing to go on, because like personally, like most of my weekends like can be free if I want them to be, so I can afford to enter every single tournament. But like some other players, very good players, can only enter half of them because that's just how their schedule works out.
Yeah, well, I mean, you could also do something like top 3 finishes or something like that.
Sure, but I mean, again, that rewards the ability to play more of them. But
Yeah, but not by as much.
you can't get around it entirely.
Yeah.
One thing I'd like to see is in importance between ECQs and worlds, like maybe have the top 4 of ECQs feed into
A super qualifier.
super qualifier. Yeah, like, and you would have to change the ECQ name or something, but like, it would give people who do consistently well in ECQs more, having to just reach top 4 to make it to one of those. It would feel like more of an accomplishment, where making top 4 and then, not eventually getting there must feel pretty bad, or I guess this season making top 2,
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, I lost in finals to Ace. Boxer, you lost in finals as well, didn't you? Like,
no, I lost in the quarter.
Yeah, I didn't.
I thought you lost in the finals once, but
Well, in any case, yeah, like all 3 of us are one match away from not being qualified, even though we had absolutely fantastic seasons all around. If we had lost one match that we ended up winning, the narrative could sound a lot different. So yeah, I mean, rewarding consistent play, I think, is really good. But I also just thought of something like these guys were magic grinders, right? They've grinded the magic circuit. They know, like, if you think that Eternal is a grind, you have no idea what it's like to try to grind for magic. It's absolutely insane. Maybe they just don't want that experience for people. They're just like, grinding is not good. We're just not going to encourage that type of performance because it leads to burnout.
I mean, they saw us complaining about having 3 tournaments back to back to back weekend in the championship months. Like, that's nothing compared to Magic.
Yeah. I was advocating for that type of thing because what I was saying is it would make teams so much more relevant. What you could have is, like, if you just alternated between Throne and Expedition each week, right? One tournament a week, that's a ton. But if you had, say we're on a team, right? And the Boxer and I are going to work on Expedition every week and stay up to date with all the changes, and Collector's just going to have a pulse on Throne. I think that would be really cool. Just like division of roles within teams, that would be really awesome. And we just listen to each other for what to play on whatever the weekend is.
Yeah, that could help, but like then you run into one, like, if you're not actively playing a format, there will be games that you definitely lose just because you didn't realize you should be playing around X card out of this person's market, or things like that. It also just like further solidifies the advantage of teams, when a lot of players, when they're just trying to break into the tournament scene, there's not going to be a lot of teams that want them. I know Friends of Eternal is open to everyone, but like, that's kind of like an exception to the rule, right? Like,
yeah, well, to your first point, sure, that would be great. It would reward people who are, putting in the work. I think that's good.
I don't know. It would be great if people realize that the reward from teams is less on the, we have this secret tech, we're gonna win the tournament. It's more on, you're constantly talking to other good players. That, just taking the leap and reaching out and talking to people helps your game a ton. And FE definitely helped a ton of people get a lot better because they're having these conversations. But I think, there are definitely a lot of players who are like, oh, do I jump into FE? Will people, think my opinions are valid? And you should just jump in, start talking to people. It's really the conversation that makes you better.
Yeah, that's so true. And to add to your point, talking to other people and listening to them, that's a very important step.
yes,
I've talked about trying to come up with official everyone is trash mentality, and just an official code of laws for the FE Discord that you should follow, and ascend to cult leader status and stuff like that. I think it would be good to outline that type of thing for this is how to have a helpful conversation. Maybe not enforce it strictly or whatever, but outlining it might be a good idea. But anyway, back to the original question. The Boxer, what would you like to see in the next season of Competitive Eternal?
I kind of answered that with the middle-sized tournaments and I don't know. I'd also like something to reward people who keep doing well. You get this many top 64s, you get qualified for something. You get this many top 32s, you also get qualified. Maybe you get one by top 16s, or I don't know, something like that.
A loyalty program.
Yeah, something to keep people entering them. And yeah,
Yeah, I think definitely having incentive to stick with it and like make a long-term commitment is good. It can't be too much, otherwise you lead to burnout, but like something like the last chance qualifier or like a super qualifier does make a lot of sense. So something that neither of you have mentioned yet is I hope we get more draft tournaments. Like that is
Yep,
really high on my list of things.
that
If
was gonna be
we
my next thing.
Yeah, if we just like had I guess like 2 a month between Throne, Expedition, and Draft. Geez, I guess that's a ton of tournaments. But you figure like, 2 people qualify each month and you have however many months of tournaments to a total pool size of 24 players. Like that's definitely something that could happen, right?
Yeah, I mean it's a little awkward because while I do love draft tournaments, they've never had draft actually matter for Worlds. So you can definitely get some players who are great at draft into Worlds, but a lot of them either don't care about constructed or just like they just never play it really. So I'm sure they'd be okay players, especially if they're good at draft. Like a lot of the skills translate, but there's nowhere for them to showcase their prowess. So adding something to Worlds as well, where I know this year is split between Expedition and Throne. Maybe next year add like a small draft portion, like they do one draft, like 5 games of Throne, 5 games of Expedition. The highest combined totals at the end of that go into like top 4 of Throne or something.
Yeah. If there was a way to qualify just playing limited, I would probably do that. Like I would be totally happy to just grind limited to try to qualify and then shift gears to constructed for whatever the world's formats are. Like it would be super cool to have play draft at the highest level. But I also just like totally wouldn't mind if all draft serves as is like a way to punch my ticket, I would totally be into that.
Right, but my point was that you're a constructive player willing to play draft to qualify. Like my point was like the people who really only enjoy draft. There's obviously the money, but like there's nothing like for them in Worlds to be excited about once they're there.
I guess. I was definitely doing a lot more draft than constructed, like at certain points during internal, but that's neither here nor there. All right. Well, we've been going on for a really long time. Thank you, you two, for joining me. I hope this was fun to listen to and reminisce. And why don't you send in your favorite Eternal memory, posted in the FECast portion of the Friends of Eternal Discord, and let's just get a lot of great memories of Eternal because, we're in this game because we're absolute junkies for it. And, it's led to a lot of great memories. So put that in FECast.
Speaking of great memories, can you link below this video Ilya wiping his own board when his opponent Shimmer packed?
I mean, if you can dig it up for me, yeah, sure.
Okay, I'll grab it for you.
All right. Any last words, the Boxer? Do you have any plugs that you need to make? You're on a podcast on a weekly basis, right?
Yeah, so I took over as co-host of Backlash podcast after T Chamber 5 went on hiatus. He's still playing Eternal, but like he's focusing on other stuff right now. So every week, Notorious GHP and I talk about Eternal and Hearthstone, and I guess sometimes a little bit about Magic. Yeah, you can find us on Spotify, SoundCloud. I forget where else. I should know, but yeah, check it out.
How about you, Collector? Do you have any projects in the works?
I mean, I stream at Twitch TV /walking_sponge, and that's about it.
All right. Follow Walking Sponge on Twitch and be sure to check out Backlash on wherever you get your podcasts. I just use the Apple Podcasts app, but I listen to them every week. All right. Thanks, everyone, for listening. Best of luck in the Eternal Celebration. Enjoy the festivities. Enjoy Set 1 Draft, and post your favorite memory in the Discord. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, we will see you in the Friend Zone. The Friends of Eternal Discord is the best place on the internet to get better at Eternal. We have players of all skill and experience levels, all happy to help each other out on basically any aspect of their Eternal gameplay. And making all this possible is our generous patrons over at patreon.com. If you'd like to support FECast or Friends of Eternal, consider donating at patreon.com/Friends of Eternal. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, we'll see you in the Friend Zone.
I'm still looking for that Ilya just destroying himself.
There's a command in the main Discord.
Is it there? Do you know what it is?
What is Ilya versus Death Strike?
Is that the clip?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there we go.